everybody, my name is David Tate and welcome back to Now Let's Be Honest About Movies for our first video covering The Chosen Season 3. Yes, I know that The Chosen Season 2 just ended a couple of weeks ago, but it's never too early to start talking about The Chosen Season 3. They have not yet finished writing this thing, and they definitely haven't started filming this, but I thought we'd still get the anticipation rolling by giving you my initial predictions on what we might cover in the next season of this show. I really don't have a lot to work off of yet. We only have a few events that I can think of off the top of my head that we are for sure going to cover, but what I thought I'd do is I would bring out my Gospel Harmony Excel spreadsheet that I've featured in a few other videos, and we would just walk through a chronological story of the Gospels and try to guess, give an educated guess on what we might see in the next season. As we've talked about in past videos, the way that they've been doing this show, they're not necessarily walking through the life of Christ in a specifically chronological manner that necessarily follows exactly how it is in the Gospels, and that's not really that big of a deal. This show, we have to remember, is not simply trying to take the Bible and put it to screen. This show is a fictional dramatization of what it could have been like to be a follower of Christ, right? So there is a distinction there. There's a lot of artistic liberties taken, and we also don't have a specific chronology covering the life of Christ. There's a lot of debates on exactly how the chronology works in regards to most things in Christ's life. We have 4 different Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all of which organize things in a different way because they have different emphases and stuff like that. And so it's really hard to determine the chronology of this stuff. But I thought that we would just kind of embrace our inner Bible nerd, open up this Excel spreadsheet, and start walking through it to kind of just give our hypothetical guesses on what we might see just to get the ball rolling on this. Once they start filming everything and once we start getting behind the scenes stuff, I will start coming out with more videos so that we can start talking about this and just get people excited for it. Just so that we're not talking about it, We want to keep talking about this. We want to keep spreading the word about this show, even while they're in between seasons. And so I thought this might be a good video to make just to keep people talking about it. And so, with all that being said, let's open up this document and start talking about what we might see in The Chosen Season 3. As you can see here, if this is your first time seeing this spreadsheet, I've color-coded this. I'm a big nerd. I'm fine with everybody knowing that. Everything that is in this burnt orange right here, UT colors, I was an Aggie fan, whatever. The burnt orange right here, this is everything that was featured in The Shepherd, which is actually the pilot episode for The Chosen, which basically got this all launched. And so that's mainly stuff that deals with the nativity story because it's basically telling the nativity story from the perspective of the shepherd. Everything in green is stuff that was featured in Season 1. And you'll see that as we go. And everything in gold was stuff that was featured in Season 2. I have chosen to put blue for Season 3, and so that's what we're going with here. And you'll see first and foremost that the first thing I think that we will see in Season 3 is a calling for Judas Iscariot. We met Judas at the end of Season 2, literally in the last episode, in the finale episode, and I think that probably in the very first episode of Season 3, we will have an encounter between Jesus and Judas where Jesus officially calls Judas to be his disciple. We have had an encounter like this with pretty much every single one of the 12 apostles, and so it wouldn't surprise me if we also got that with Judas as well. I actually feel like it's probably necessary because you've got to have an interaction of that sort with Jesus and Judas, just for the dramatic tension, obviously, because we know where Judas's story is headed, and so you have to have some sort of interplay between Jesus and Judas right off the bat. And what we're going to see over here, you're going to see there's a lot of white space, and that's because there's a lot of things that I think we probably aren't going to see in Season 3 and possibly never even see in the show, mainly because we're already past that point in the story, and unless they do a flashback, I don't think we're going to see it. And so right here, you'll see that this is covering the birth of Jesus and John the Baptist. I don't think we're going to see any of this in the show. I think that, they've already addressed some of it. You'll see over here, whenever Jesus and John the Baptist talked in Season 2, they talked about some stuff that referenced their birth narratives. I don't think we're going to get any flashbacks to that because we already have the shepherd, right, which already tells the story of the nativity. So I don't think we're going to see that. And then whenever you go to the young Jesus, whenever Jesus is still in his childhood, I don't think we're going to see his circumcision. I don't think we're going to see him presented in the temple. I could actually see this happening maybe later on in the show, maybe around the time of the crucifixion in Season 6. Maybe they might have the moment whenever Simeon is prophesying to Mary and is talking about how a sword will pierce her soul, and maybe that'll be a flashback there. But I'm not sure about that either, and this is a season 3 prediction video, so I'm not going to get into that. I don't think we're going to see the wise men. They were referenced in, I should actually put that here. They were referenced in one by, I think, 07, I believe. Jesus mentions that he has had visitors from the east, and I believe that was when he was talking to Quintus, but I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, please correct me on that. We have the escape to Egypt mentioned. I don't think we're going to see that. We've seen the return to Nazareth. Don't think we're going to see that. I think the only thing we're seeing from Jesus as a child was in season 1, episode 5, whenever his parents kind of forgot him in Jerusalem during the Passover. Right here we see this is John the Baptist preparing the way for Jesus, the baptism of Jesus, Satan tempting Jesus. Dallas Jenkins, the creator of the show, he has specified that they currently have no plans for showing any of that stuff. Obviously, they're still writing season 3, and so their plans could change, but given the fact that this is only a 56-episode show, and they've got a lot of stuff to cover, I wouldn't plan on those plans changing there. I would think that we're probably not going to see any of that, as much as we might want to, right? I would love to see the baptism of Jesus. I would love to see the temptation of Jesus. That might be a good way for them to get the actor who plays John the Baptist to return in seasons beyond season 3, but I don't think we're going to see that stuff. The next white space we have here is Jesus cleansing the temple, and this could be something featured in season 3, but I don't believe so, and the reason why is because, first off, I think that there's got to be just certain key moments that are big in season 3. Also, another thing about this is that there's debate between scholars on whether or not this event happened 1 time, 2 times, 3 or 4 times, but it seems like in the Gospels, it happened twice. It seems like it happened once at the beginning of Jesus' ministry and once at the end. Of course, it could have happened in between as well. This obviously is the story when Jesus goes in, starts flipping the tables and brandishing a whip and stuff like that. It could have happened more than that, but it seems like maybe it happened at the beginning of Jesus' ministry and at the end again. But I would not be surprised if they just saved that for the end. First off, because there is debate about it, and some people think it only happened once. They think it's telling the same story. But also, I think it'd get kind of repetitive. And once again, since this is just a 56-episode show, I don't think they're going to want to have that same story twice. So I don't think we're going to see this in season 3. I think this is going to be a big climactic moment, maybe in season 6, that's setting up why the people hate Jesus so much that leads to his crucifixion. Then we have right here Jesus staying with his disciples and baptizing, and then John the Baptist exalting Jesus. This is in John chapter 3 when John the Baptist says, "He must increase, I must decrease." I was hoping we would get that in season 2. We did not, and so I don't think we're going to see that going forward because, as you'll see down here, John the Baptist is imprisoned by the end of season 2. And so I don't think we're going to get any flashbacks to seeing John the Baptist free and Jesus baptizing his disciples. We might get to see Jesus and his disciples baptizing, but it won't be under the same context as it is in the Gospels. And so just keep that in mind. Jesus begins teaching in Galilee. Technically, we've already seen that. I just didn't highlight it because technically we didn't see it in the same way that it's described here in Scripture. But Jesus has already begun teaching in Galilee, so I don't think we're going to see that either. Here we have Jesus casting out a demon. Oh, sorry, I kind of just skipped the stuff that is in blue. That's my bad. This is stuff that I do think we might see in season 3. This is the first stuff here, and I'm not sure, this is just speculation, but just working chronologically through it, because that's really all I can do. I'm not going to guess on stuff that's way down the road, because I really have no way of knowing. But just working chronologically through this, these are pretty significant stories that happened fairly early on in Jesus' ministry, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we see this here. And you'll see right here, next to Christ healing the nobleman's son, I put compared to the centurion servant, and that's because later on in the Synoptic Gospels, we actually have a very similar story where Jesus heals the servant of a centurion. And the stories are very, very similar, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they just combined those stories and just presented those at one time. And that might happen in season 3. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. And some people have speculated that they might be setting that up with characters like maybe Atticus or Gaius or just other Roman officials in the show. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but it's certainly a possibility, as is really the case with all this. Jesus being rejected in Nazareth, I think that would be an interesting story beat for them to have. I would think it'd be interesting for Jesus to return to his hometown and get rejected. That's a pretty cool story in Scripture, and it happens fairly early on in his ministry, it seems. So I think it would make sense for them to do that. But right here, you'll see I have stars next to this, and that's because we know that this is going to happen. We got to get the rest of the Sermon on the Mount, right? The end of season 2, it ended with us only getting the Beatitudes and a few little references to the other things Jesus is teaching. And I don't know if we're going to have him teaching the entire Sermon on the Mount in one big go. I actually heavily doubt that. I think that if they do show the rest of it, it might be in a very artistic way. I don't know exactly how they'll do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we actually did get the full sermon or like the rest of it. Just because I think it would be a prime opportunity for them to have one cinematic way where you could compile the Beatitudes from season 2 and the rest of it into one long thing, and then you could show that to people from now on. Like, that'd be a really cool thing, and so I hope that they show the rest of it. But at the very least, we'll at least get some of the Sermon on the Mount at the beginning of season 3, probably the very first episode, and so that's something that I'm pretty confident we will see in this. These other things I have up here that are white, I don't think we're going to see these. Jesus heals many and rises early to pray. I mean, I think we're going to see more healings. I think we're going to see more praying, just not necessarily specifically in this context mentioned here. I think it'd actually be hard for us to know exactly what they're, because these are very general things right here. Jesus casting out a demon after teaching in a synagogue, they might include that. The reason I don't have it marked blue is because we've already had a bunch of demonic stuff so far, and so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in the next season we don't have as much demonic stuff going on, right? Because we've had that in season 1, we've had it in season 2, and don't get me wrong, casting out demons is a big thing throughout the whole ministry of Jesus. But in order to change things up a bit, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of just gave a break to that, just so it didn't feel too repetitive. And so they might actually skip over this story and not include that. And really, I think whenever he was hanging out with John the Baptist and healed Caleb, I think that could have almost been a replacement for that. Go down here. We have Jesus praying, Jesus returning to Capernaum. I think we'll see that stuff. Just I don't have it marked because I don't think it's going to be the explicit, translation of Scripture. Jesus going to the sea and teaching, same thing. And then down here, I've got stuff marked, and this is just pure speculation. You'll notice there's no stars over here. I have no idea whether or not they'll show this. I mainly just marked these things because these are the next things that show up chronologically on my Gospel Harmony, and I think it would make sense given what they've established so far in the show. I have here the Pharisees plotting to kill Jesus, and that's because I think this is the natural next step in where they're leading the Pharisees. We've already seen this become very political. We've seen Shemuel kind of leaning towards the political stuff more, even though he's still very hesitant. And I think ultimately what's going to happen is that there's going to be a turn where they realize they just don't like this Jesus guy. He's going to do something that sets them so on the edge that they have personally, to them, they have no choice but to want to kill him. I think they'll do it really well, and I'm interested to see how that happens. They might stretch that out at least maybe another season or something before it becomes that hateful, but I do think we might see that because that's something that's pretty evident early on in the Gospels. Jesus escaping the Pharisees and healing multitudes. I think that these two stories kind of go very well together, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. Jesus praying and appointing the 12 apostles. Okay, if you remember my season 2 prediction video, let me take a swig of water real quick because my voice is really dry. If you remember my season 2 prediction video, this is actually what I predicted was going to be the season finale of season 2. But that's because I hadn't heard the news that the Sermon on the Mount was going to be the finale. And so I thought that maybe the Sermon on the Mount would happen halfway through the season and this would be where it ends. Now I'm actually not so confident whether or not they're even going to show this. Basically, in the Gospels, Jesus goes up on a mountain, he prays, he comes back down, and he has so many disciples that he actually appoints the 12. I don't know if we're going to see that or not. We might, and if we do, it'll happen in season 3 because they really can't go beyond that without clearly specifying who the 12 are. But I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see that, but I did mark it in blue just because if it does happen, I think it would have to happen in season 3. I don't think they can stretch it out into 4 or 5 or 6. Definitely not 6 with him just appointing them because he kind of has to have this core group of 12 from the get-go. And by the end of season 2, we've got Judas there, and so it'd have to happen pretty early on that these guys are appointed. But I'm not totally sure if we're going to include that. Just storytelling-wise, I'm not sure they'll include that. Jesus comes down from the mountain, heals multitude. This is right here where we see Jesus heals a centurion's servant. And I compare this to the nobleman's son. Because like I said, I think that they might take those two stories and conflate them together. Or they'll just choose to just depict one of them. Mainly because I think it might get kind of repetitive. And once again, 56 episodes show they got to pick and choose stuff. They're not going to depict everything. Jesus raising a widow's son from the dead. that might be kind of cool because we haven't seen Jesus resurrect anybody so far. And so it might be kind of nice to see him do that. And I wouldn't be surprised. It seems like that would be a natural progression because the apostles so far in the show have been increasingly impressed by the things that Jesus can do. And I wouldn't be surprised if this next season is devoted to that. Now that we've got the core 12, it seems like it would make sense for this next season to be devoted to them truly figuring out who Jesus is. And I think that we're going to see a lot of big miracles or big things like this where they just kind of sit back and they're like, whoa, who is this guy? I think that would be a very smart way of them going about season 3. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but I think that that would be the natural progression now that we've got the 12 collected. Because season 1 was basically about establishing who's who these characters are, and how their initial reactions to Jesus were. It was introducing you to the world, introducing you to Jesus, introducing you to the main disciples. Season 2 was mainly about how the disciples are learning to work together, and I think that's going to be a thread that's introduced throughout the rest of it. But I think season 3 should take both of those two things and bring them together to where they're just, now that the disciples are together, they're still learning how to work together, but they're also learning who this guy they're following truly is, so that by the time you get to season 4 and 5, they're a little bit more mature and they're really able to go out and do more things as official established disciples. So it seems like season 3 really should be setting that groundwork where they're like, who is this Jesus guy? And Jesus' fame, I think it's going to spread because of the Sermon on the Mount, obviously. And then right here, we have this moment where I really hope we get this. I'm not sure if we will, because I think that, as we'll talk about in a second, I think John the Baptist is probably going to die pretty early on in this season. They might stretch it out a little bit longer, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did it pretty early on. But I do hope that before that happens, we get this interaction right here. And this is a story that we read about, obviously, in the Gospels, where John the Baptist sends some disciples to Jesus to question whether or not he is the Messiah. And it's a very weird interaction because, as we know about John the Baptist, both from the Gospels and from The Chosen, he was utterly confident in who Jesus was as the Messiah. And you can just tell that John is in prison and he's struggling with some doubt. And the doubt really seems to be faced in the fact that if Jesus is the Messiah, why is John still in prison? Because it seems like John the Baptist might have also seemed to misunderstand a little bit about what Jesus came to do. He knew that he was the Lamb of God who came to take away the sins of the world, but he also seemed to expect Jesus to be that conquering king that everybody expected him to be. And so I really hope they include that just to nuance John's character and to allow Jesus to respond to them and say, hey, look at what's happening. The blind see, the deaf hear, the dead are raised. I think that'd be really, really cool. And I think that's why you would have to, like, if they do that, you'd have to include this Jesus raising the widow's son from the dead, because it gives ground to the dead being raised. Because an interesting thing about that interaction in the Gospels is that John asked this question, and what Jesus is doing is he's quoting passages from the Old Testament that are identifiers for the Messiah. And what Jesus includes that isn't in the Old Testament is that the dead are raised. And that's really cool. But what Jesus excludes is that the captives are freed. And so it seems like whenever Jesus responds to John's disciples, he's actually sending a subliminal message. Because John will be hearing all this stuff, and he's hearing, okay, the deaf hear, the blind see, all that stuff. He's going to be waiting for the captives are freed. The captives are freed because John the Baptist is in prison. But then Jesus doesn't say that. And so it seems like the message would be, John, you're going to die in prison. But then Jesus adds something that's not in the Old Testament, and he says, the dead are raised. And so the message to John would be, you're going to die in prison, but don't worry, the dead are raised. And that would be a very encouraging message for John the Baptist. And so personally, I love that story, and I would love if they included that. I don't know if they will, just because I do think they're going to kill John the Baptist off pretty early on. But we will see. And then you'll see that I have a bunch of just white space here for stuff that I don't think they're including. And that's because I think that there's somewhere they need to go with this. They might include this stuff later on in the show, but I do think there's certain key moments that we do need to include in the season because they have said they're going to include them. And so I skipped down to where those are in the chronology, and I thought that might be a good place to end there because this would all just be pure speculation as well. And this, at least, the whole John the Baptist scene up here, we at least have some grounds to believe that because we know John is in prison at this point, and so it's likely that that will happen in season 3. And I think they did state that John will show up in season 3, and I doubt he'll show up any further after that. This stuff right here, it could show up, but we've only got 8 episodes, and so I'm not going to force it in there yet until I have more information. But this stuff is the stuff that I'm really going to include for sure, and I really can't go beyond this because there are a few events that I am almost 100% confident are going to show up here. First off is John the Baptist being beheaded, and I'll explain why I have this ahead of time and stuff like this. I think John the Baptist is going to die in this season. I think that it's a necessary story beat for Andrew's character because of his stress and fear that he was kind of facing at the end of season 2. I think that it's necessary for Andrew to go through this because I think that he's going to learn a lesson from it. And so that's why I think that John the Baptist might die very early on in season 3. Even if we don't get that other story ahead of time, I think we might get this. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Andrew's character, how Philip handles this as a much more mature disciple. And I think this is also going to happen, first and foremost, because obviously they could change all this up, but biblically speaking, these events all right here are one of those places where it does seem that there is a fairly fixed chronology in the Gospels. Of course, the chronology doesn't matter that much. There's not really a huge significance to the chronology here. There's nothing theologically that's going to change if they switch this up. So they could change it up in the show, but biblically speaking, there is a certain chronology that's going on here. And so I included all of this just because personally, that's what I'd like to see. I would like them to really follow this just because I'm a Bible purist, right? I love, as much as they can adapt Scripture straightforward, I love that. And the reason why I included this is because Jesus feeding the 5,000 has been confirmed to show up in season 3. I believe that they have said that that's not going to necessarily be the finale. I could be wrong there, but I believe they said it's not going to be the finale. And so this might happen towards the middle of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like episode 4 thing, because usually they kind of try to make episodes 4 big because it's like a mid-season finale. I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up there. And if that's the case, I would think these things have to happen before that. And that gives me a little opportunity to explain the chronology here, because what it seems like happens in the Gospels right here is that Jesus sends out the 12 apostles in pairs of 2 to go out and spread the news of the kingdom. And then they eventually come back. During this time, Jesus learns that John the Baptist has been killed, and Herod starts hearing news about Jesus, and he thinks that Jesus is the resurrected John the Baptist. And this is when the baptized disciples come and they tell Jesus about John the Baptist's fate. All this happens, and when we get to the Gospels right here at the feeding of the 5,000 story, Jesus has actually just left everything. He's taken his disciples and he has gone off to just kind of go be alone. The disciples, they've been out, they've been preaching the gospel, they've been out 2 by 2, they come back, so he wants to give them some rest time, and he just wants to spend time alone with them. And then he's also mourning the loss of his cousin, and so that's a sad moment for him. He wants to go be alone as well. And so the disciples of Jesus, they go off to be alone. And it really sets up a very good drama for the feeding of the 5,000, because this is a moment where you can understand in the Bible why they want to be alone. And they really just you would think they deserve it. But then, in this moment, the biggest crowd they've had so far comes to them, right? People hear where they're at, and 5,000 men plus women and children come after them and come to Jesus and Jesus just starts teaching. And it's a very good lesson for the disciples, because it kind of, to me, brings back to mind season 2, episode 3, when Jesus comes back and he's beaten and tired, and how it convicts the disciples. I think this would be another good moment to teach that, because Jesus just wants to mourn. The disciples want to just rest, but then they've got 5,000 men plus women and children to tend to. And normally we'd be inclined to say, hey, go away, come back tomorrow. But instead, Jesus chooses to minister to them, and he heals them, and he teaches them, and ultimately he feeds them. Right? And this is a really cool thing. And the drama in the Gospels is already there. And so I hope that they include all that. And I think they could do this pretty naturally in the opening episodes of season 3. I think Jesus could preach the Sermon on the Mount. And given that he's preached all this material, maybe he could spend the rest of that episode, or even the next episode, teaching the disciples that same stuff so that they can memorize it, learn it, and then go out and teach it. He pairs them up in 2s, they go out, they teach it, they eventually come back, maybe around episode 3. In that same episode, maybe they learn that John the Baptist has been killed, they go off to just be by themselves, episode 4, a bunch of people show up and they start, they want to be ministered to. And then episode 4, I think, would conclude with the feeding of the 5,000. And then, watch this. I could be totally wrong here. This is me totally speculating about stuff. I'm just kind of developing this stuff in my mind as how I would like it to be seen. So Jesus feeds the 5,000, and that would be a huge moment towards the end of episode 4. And then Jesus says, okay, to the disciples, you go off on a boat. You go across the lake. I'll meet you there. I'm going to go up and pray. So that's what we have here. Jesus goes up the mountain and prays. And then I think the way episode 4 could end, this is me, once again, it's pure speculation. I don't know. They might not even include feeding of the 5,000 and walking on water in the same season. They might shuffle the chronology. But in the Gospels, it happens back to back. So Jesus goes up on the mountain to pray. The disciples go out into the stormy sea, right? Well, they're out in the sea and the storm hits. And I think that episode 4 could potentially end right there. That'd be a great cliffhanger, great mid-season finale to where you're like, oh no. And obviously we know the story, we know where it's heading, but it would still be very dramatic, right? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Episode 5 begins with Jesus walking on the water, Peter coming to him, Jesus helping them out, ye of little faith, cuts to opening credits. That'd be pretty cool, right? I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be pretty neat. So we'd get the walking on water thing right after that. And then storm ceases, they get to the boat. And then those who touch Jesus' clothes are healed. And then we have this thing. I don't know if they're going to include this, but I hope they do. This is called the Bread of Life Discourse. And this is something we get exclusively in the Gospel of John. It is one of my favorite passages in all Scripture. And I hope they include it. And it would definitely add to the drama. And it would give motivation to the Pharisees to want to kill Jesus. I'll explain why. So what happens after the feeding of the 5,000 in the Gospels is that, Jesus and the disciples, they go to the other side of the lake. And we learn that it's because Jesus perceived they wanted to make him king. He feeds 5,000 men plus women and children, and they are so enamored by what he's done for them that they want to make him king. And that sounds like an amazing thing, right? I mean, to make Jesus king, that's what we should want to do in our lives. But he knows they want to do it for the wrong reasons. And so he actually leaves. And that's the incident where we get the disciples there, and Jesus walks on the water, they go to the other side of the lake. Well, in the Gospel of John, we read that these people heard that Jesus went to the other side of the lake, and they followed him. And once again, we get the picture, wow, these are amazing people. They're willing to travel miles and miles and miles just to see Jesus. These are great guys. But no, once again, it's for the wrong reasons. So they get over there, and Jesus, oh man, it's such a good story. Jesus turns to these guys, and he gives one of the hardest sermons ever. He tells them, you come to me and you want to make me king because I gave you bread. But if you really paid attention to my message, you would know that I am the bread of life. You need to eat my flesh and drink my blood if you want to live. And so he's challenging them. And from a Jewish culture, if you're taking this literally, you're like, yikes. But Jesus doesn't mean it literally, he means it symbolically. But they hear this, they're like, whoa, yikes, that's against the Jewish law. We can't eat flesh, we can't drink blood, that's cannibalism. And so what we read at the end of John chapter 6 is that a majority of Jesus' disciples left him. And so this would be a great dramatic thing. At the end of episode 4, you have Jesus feeding the 5,000. He's got the biggest crowd ever, the biggest crowd yet. And then by the end of episode 5, the majority of those people have left. And he's down to just a few. He's got the 12, maybe a few dozen more, if that. That would be dramatic, right? It'd be such a twist, such a shift. I think that'd be really cool to see. John chapter 6 is one of my favorite passages in all of Scripture, just because it has a lot to teach us, I think, as a church, that Jesus values the quality of discipleship over the quantity of numbers. And there's so much drama just already built into that story that it basically writes itself, So I would love for them to include that. And since they're including the feeding of the 5,000, I hope that they just follow that all the way through. And I think that's everything that I've included so far. Because, like I said, this is just pure speculation. I have nowhere else that I know where to go with this. And I really won't until we get more details. And if I get more details, don't worry, I will make another video. But that's all I've got so far for y'all. That is my speculation for right now. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that, if anything, this has gotten you more excited for the show. Or maybe got you more excited to go read your Bibles. Because, honestly, I love the show, but I would love to encourage you to read your Bibles even more. So please just go read your Bibles, go read the Gospels, analyze them, and let me know what you think is going to happen in The Chosen Season 3. If there's anything that we know about that I have not addressed yet, please let me know. I'm totally fine with being corrected. I am not perfect. I am not infallible, but the Bible is. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, do all that fun stuff that'll help this channel grow, help us spread the word about The Chosen, help talk about the Word of God, help us fall in love with Jesus Christ. That's the main goal, guys. It's not about the channel, it's not about The Chosen, it's not even just about the Bible, it's about Jesus. And so whatever we can do to help people get passionate about that, let's do that. And I think liking this video, subscribing and stuff, that will help. But that's all I've got to say for this video. I'll be back to y'all. I think the next video I'm coming out with, I've already actually filmed it with Jonathan and Brienne. I'm going to be coming to you with my episode rankings for The Chosen Season 2. And then after that, I'm going to start releasing my character analysis of each of the apostles one by one. Been doing a lot of research for that. I'm excited to share it with you. But I'm tired. It's like past midnight. I've got work tomorrow. It's time for me to go to bed. I will see you later. Be sure to keep a smile on your face. Don't let anybody steal your joy. I love you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing to this channel and helping it grow. Thanks for interacting with me with the comments. I've loved getting to know y'all, and I look forward to getting to know you more. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Farewell. God bless. Ka-chow.
You read a verse, you sing a hymn, the money's in the plate. Sundays you mark out for him, but even then you show up late. You bought the shirt, you wear the cross, but sin throughout the week. For 30 shekels and a noose, you kiss him on the cheek.